The first, we will begin with Mark Colville, who is one of the Kings Bay Plowshares co-defendants. And he's the only one of the group that has not been sentenced yet. And though Mark did spend 15 months already in the county jails down in Georgia before the trial. Mark lives at the Amistad Catholic Worker in New Haven, Connecticut with his wife, Luce, and their youngest of 4 children, Isaiah. Okay, Mark, you're on.
Thank you, Marianne, and thanks everybody who worked to put this together. Much appreciated. I'm very honored to be included. Really, my main task or objective right now is to just say something brief about Clare and to introduce a very powerful interview that we're going to hear in a few minutes. I also thought it might be a good idea to just again, as was mentioned, I'm still awaiting sentencing, and I'm happy to give whatever information people want about that. But I just wanted to give a brief update. I continue to hold the position that that it's insane to be sending anybody to federal prison or to any prison in this country at this time. In fact, it is against the BOP, the Bureau of Prison, and the Department of Justice's own policies to be sending anybody to prison right now. And so it's part of the point that I'm trying to make by refusing to go to Georgia for sentencing until the governor of my state says that it's safe to go to Georgia, and that I will not give up my constitutional right to be sentenced in person. So I'm continuing to do that. We just got another postponement, so right now I'm scheduled to be sentenced on April 9th. And I hope to, I'm trying to make a point here. I'm trying to make a point on behalf of all of us that this is insane. And so we'll see what happens with that. Anyway, on to the main event here. When I see Clare, I see someone whose life is like a hologram. One of the amazing things people may or may not know about holograms is that if you embed a holographic image on a piece of glass, and then you were to shatter the glass, that each piece would contain the entire image. And to me, that's a real good metaphor for how Clare chooses to live her life. That's how she lives. Nonviolence, personal and communal disarmament, and always engaged in the liberation struggle by centering the voices of those who are held down and held bound. These commitments form the essence of who Clare is, and in my experience, I simply never have an encounter with her in which I don't recognize them as her primary agenda. And that's why, to me, while I may personally worry about my friend going to prison this week, I cannot grieve over it, because I know the gifts that she will bear with her behind those walls. I know how fresh is the air of hope she will be breathing with those who feel like they're suffocating in there. And so it's also fitting and not a bit surprising to me that we should begin this festival of hope by listening to a voice that embodies hope. A voice that Clare has made tremendous efforts to amplify through her participation in the Kings Bay Plowshares community. And that voice belongs to Setsuko Thurlow. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it. Setsuko Thurlow, a Hibakusha, a survivor of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. She's been a powerful witness and a tireless organizer as part of the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons. Setsuko gave an acceptance speech for ICAN as it was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2017, which was three and a half months after the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons was adopted in July 2017. And we know now that it has become part of in the body of international law. What we will see and hear today is a brief excerpt of a recent interview with Setsuko Thurlow, the full version of which will be made available on the Kings Bay Plowshares website. She has a particular and a powerful message for the people of the United States in this clip at this critical moment in human history. And so let's listen to the voice of Setsuko Thurlow.
Girls were mobilized to work. Well, as a 13-year-old grade 8 student in the girls' school in Hiroshima, I experienced that horrific experience. Monday morning, and a group of about 30 girls were mobilized to work for the army. We were not at the school. We were mobilized away from school, doing the work at the army headquarters. At 8 o'clock, we had a meeting, and the officer in charge of our students gave us pep talk, and we said, yes, sir, we'll do our best for the emperor's sake. At that moment, I saw the bluish white flash in the window, and I had the sensation of being blown into the air. I still have that sensation of floating in, and that's the end of my recollection. When I found myself in a total silence and darkness, I found myself pinned under collapsed building. I could not move my body, so I knew I was faced to death. I knew finally Americans got us. Then I started hearing whispering voices of the girls. God help me, Mother help me. I still hear those voices ringing from time to time. Then all of a sudden, strong male voice said, don't give up, don't give up, keep kicking. You see the sun ray coming through that opening, crawl toward it as quickly as possible. So I knew the soldier or officer was there trying to help me, to free me. I managed to come out, and by the time I came out, the building, the rebels were on fire. And I thought about 30 girls who were with me in the same room, but I couldn't possibly get back into that building. And outside, it was dark. By the time I came out, that bright summer morning turned into a dark night, perhaps because of the soot and the particles in the air rising in the mushroom cloud. And I started seeing some moving object. And that happened to be the procession of ghostly figures, the human beings, but they did not look human beings to me. They looked like ghosts. That's why I call it a ghostly procession. And nobody was running. Everybody was slowly shuffling, and their hair was standing up to the sky, and the skin and the flesh were burned. They are burned, blackened, and swollen, and they collapse. And when they collapse, their stomach burst open, intestine stretched out, and some were carrying their own eyeballs in their hands. It was the sight you can never forget. Anyway, the soldier told us, join that procession and escape to the nearby hill. That's what we did. At the foot of our hill, there was large military training ground, about 2 football fields. And by the time we got there, the place was packed with the dead bodies and dying people, injured people. Everybody was in faint voice begging for water, water, water. But we had no bucket or containers to carry the water. We three girls who managed to escape went to the nearby stream, washed off the blood, and tore the blouses and soaked them in the water. And we dashed back to the people begging for water. We put this cloth soaked with water, and they just sucked the moisture out of that. That was the only kind of so-called rescue operation. We talk about 80% of all the healthcare professionals were killed. They were killed, and the remaining people were working somewhere else, but not where I was. When tens of thousands of people are dying, they have medication, not even drops of water. That is the kind of situation I witnessed, the situation caused by a very primitive nuclear weapon. Today, we're talking about a nuclear weapon, which far more destructive, could kill millions of people. It's so different level, different scale of destruction. But I saw part of it at that time. And I think at the first moment, about 7,000 people vaporized or carbonized, and additional 7,000 people died from burns or from the effect of radiation. By the end of 1945, well, after 5-6 months, altogether 140,000 people were killed. And today, 30,000 people have been killed in that city. And every one of them died in agony. The first image which comes to my mind is my 4-year-old nephew, 4-year-old child, that tiny body was just transformed into an unrecognizable, almost melted chunk of flesh. He was still talking. He was still asking for water. So the image of this little fellow has become in my mind the image which drives me and compels me to keep doing what I have been doing. Look, those people who didn't know what happened to their bodies. Nobody had any idea what was happening to them. They were simply melting and dying. And imagine me as a young child, the whole city disappeared from face of earth, and 100,000 of people disappeared. And 9 of them were my own family and relatives. 2 uncles, 2 aunts, 2 cousins, my sister and her 4-year-old child, sister-in-law. Just put yourself in that situation. That's what the nuclear weapon does. Indiscriminate mass killing tool in a very primitive age. So today we're talking about far more sophisticated, destructive weapons, which could kill millions of people, could be the beginning of the end of this beautiful planet. And we simply have to use our imagination to think what we are talking about, what the nuclear weapons do to humanity and the environment. The planet won't be here. I know it's difficult for people to conceptualize this change in our life, but we simply have to, we have no choice but to recognize this is the reality. We can't not hide our heads in the sand and pretend nothing is happening. And, we simply cannot. We have to get our heads out of the sand and open the eyes, open the ears, and hear and listen and learn, and have to be a responsible citizen. You see, when I speak to American people, I want to explain to them, look, United States led us to the nuclear age. It was a nation which first used the nuclear weapon, and it never seemed to have sense of remorse or guilt. It kept on merrily piling up more and more. Today, we have over 13,000, and United States and Russia owns about 90% of it. And additional 7 nations have them, 9 nations. And United States has all led in this nuclear arms race. And it's about time we have to study the issue and accept the fact it's insanity. It's illusion and delusion, and to put so much faith into so-called military doctrine of deterrence, to brag to each other, especially to the opponent. Look, we have so many nuclear weapons, and to threaten each other. That threat tactics called deterrence, I think that is blasphemy to the Creator who created each and every one of our lives. And to threaten each other, we have more horrible things to kill you, to wipe out. And that's what we are using to maintain so-called security. That's nonsense. I have seen the nuclear weapon did to us. I experienced it. And it was a very small scale. It's a survivor's motto, never again. As it is, we feel that to speak out to the world, that is our mission, our responsibility. And this is why we have been talking about the inhumanity and cruelty of the weapon. But 10 years ago, I came in contact with the ICAN people. ICAN stands for International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons. And when I met the campaigners of this group, I was astounded. I was so delighted because large number of the campaigners were young people who recognized this as their own issue, not somebody else's issue. And they said, we want the future for ourselves, for our children, for grandchildren. And they got themselves involved and couldn't believe it on July 7th, 2017, when 122 nations voted at the United Nations to adapt for the prohibition of nuclear weapons. And then in the middle of October 22nd, I think it was, last year, 50 nations ratified it. And then 90 days later, on January 22nd, it finally came into force. That means for the first time, the treaty said it's illegal to have nuclear weapons. Not only to have the nuclear weapon, to use, to test, to develop, to manufacture, every about nuclear weapon is outlawed. Well, I was so happy. I lived to this day to witness that day. Well, a lot of hibakusha from Hiroshima, Nagasaki, a lot of victims from Marshall Islands and Kazakhstan, and the people who were involved with the mining, nuclear and the uranium mining, United States, Canada, and Australia, and Africa, and so on. We all came together, and diplomats representing 122 nations. And there is a thought, it's not an easy thought. Unfortunately, small group of people reached the decision to use the first nuclear weapon on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You know, when I lived at the college in the United States, often people ask, are you still mad at us, Americans, for dropping the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? And my answer has been, I really am not angry at the people, because American people in the dark, as the Manhattan Project was concerned, just like the rest of us in the world, we didn't know what was going on at the Manhattan Project, so I cannot blame them. But small group of people, starting with President Truman, they knew what they were doing, and they made that choice. They made that decision. Indiscriminate murder of human beings, and that was a crime against humanity. And I repeat the same story. I believe that. And I want American people to recognize that. And I know you do. And that's why you're doing what you have been doing. But your government has never expressed the remorse and regret or guilt. As long as the United States government continues with that policy, there would not be reconciliation. There would not be peace and security anywhere on this earth. Mr. Obama said in his famous speech in Prague in 2009, since the United States is the only nation which has actually used nuclear weapons, America has the special moral responsibility to lead the campaign toward the world without nuclear weapon. The world rejoiced with that statement, and he got the Nobel Peace Prize for that too. But unfortunately, nothing came out of it. I wish American policymakers could reach that state of mind to recognize the United States' moral responsibility. And unless citizens pressure the government, they won't act. This is where your responsibility lies. I'm not simply criticizing you. I love this life. I love this planet. And to ensure them, we have to speak out the truth we know. You know, and I know. We got to continue to work. Thank you.
Well, thank you to Setsuko and to Ellen, my sister, for interviewing Setsuko. What she said at the end was a perfect segue for our next guest. Leona Morgan is a Diné activist from the Navajo Nation, working in New Mexico and Arizona to stop uranium production and dumping and fighting nuclear colonialism. Okay, Leona, you're next.
Okay, thank you, Marianne. Is my volume okay?
Yes, you sound great. And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. I'm so honored to be here with you all. It's, I guess, a bittersweet event why we're gathering here today. I'm just going to introduce myself by my clans before I start. I am from New Mexico. My people are from the Four Corners area, traditionally situated within the Four Sacred Mountains. And right now I'm speaking to you all from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I have worked on several issues, and I just want to acknowledge some of the things that Setsuko said. I had the pleasure and honor of speaking with her last February, almost a year now, in Paris at the UCAN Paris for the ICANN Paris Forum, and so we had plans to meet in New York in April at the World Conference during the some of the gatherings around the NPT. That didn't happen. Of course, many events last year were canceled because of the virus. And I just want to acknowledge also last year was a really big year for those of us fighting nukes, especially for us in New Mexico. Last year was its 75th anniversary of the first nuclear weapons test at the Trinity site, as well as, of course, the bombs that were used in Japan. And so I just wanted to give kind of an overview and also acknowledge a lot of people who are not here today, some of the activists who have fought most of their lives to protect their homelands and their people, some of them that we've lost most recently, such as Deborah Whiteplume in the Black Hills area, Deborah Abrahamson, Sister Ardith, Noel Marquez here in New Mexico. And I know there's many, many more, but those are some of our heroes who we've recently lost. And I'm just speaking to you all here because my involvement really came from my family. I often preface what I'm about to say by letting folks know that I didn't live in a contaminated area. I didn't grow up drinking contaminated water, but some of my family members did, and some of my people are still dealing with contamination from past uranium mining on the Navajo Nation. And there's been over 15,000 abandoned uranium mines left by the federal government across the country. The majority of them are in Colorado and Western states. And right now, we're still fighting for cleanup because there's no law to clean up these abandoned mines. And so one of the biggest issues I think for all of us is stopping not just nuclear weapons, but nuclear power. Right now, with the climate fight, there's a push for nuclear power as a so-called transitional energy, or that we need it. And I think people, like I said earlier, people have died fighting, because of all the problems that are caused not just from uranium mining, but every step of the nuclear fuel chain, both for weapons development and development of energy. And one of the biggest fights we're dealing with in New Mexico right now is the waste from the nuclear power plants. So the long-lived waste will be radioactive for millions of years, some of the isotopes. And so we're fighting a company called Holtec International. They're proposing to build the world's largest radioactive waste dump in Southeast New Mexico. And I just want to acknowledge that all of these issues are connected, and everyone, we're here to honor all of you who who are brave enough to do these tremendous actions. Everyone from the Kings Bay Plowshares 7 and other people who have risked not only their freedom but their lives. I do a lot of work behind my computer. I'm in the safety of my own home, and I can't thank you all enough for your brave actions. We really need a lot more attention and media on these issues. And so I just want to, give a message that all of our fights are connected, not just from uranium mining, but the Hibakusha. I know some say it's all radioactive radioactivity, all nuclear victims, not just the people in Japan, but everyone from the downwinders around the uranium mines and all of these nuclear facilities are Hibakusha. And some believe this, and some also connect these fights. And I think that's something we need to do more often, is to connect the fights between nuclear power development and nuclear weapons development, because there's folks fighting for amendments to RECA for downwinders of both mines and the workers there, and of course, the people around some of the weapons test sites. And just one more group of folks I want to acknowledge are all the frontline communities. We did, although a lot of us celebrated January 22nd as the entry into force of the UN treaty, but we're still fighting issues, all of us locally at home, and we still have people who are sick and people with cancers and who we've lost because of the nuclear industry. And it's for these people that I continue to fight, as well as for our sacred places. There's uranium on sacred mountains. We're contaminating our water. As Setsuko said, she mentioned water, and water is life. And also uranium mining happens predominantly on indigenous lands worldwide. So I just want to say thank you to all of you who do this work, and just to remember the people around the world who are still fighting for not just cleanup and reparations, but acknowledgement, and to bring attention to the people around Shinkolobwe uranium mine in the present day Democratic Republic of the Congo, where that first uranium came from. That was 65% uranium that went all over the world, essentially. It started with the Manhattan Project, and we're still dealing with that fallout. And so we need to end all of it, and it takes all of us to work together to do that. So thank you so much for inviting me to be here with you all today, and I will be thinking of you, Claire, and I'll be keeping you in my prayers, and all of you and all the political prisoners out there as well. Yeah, thank you.
Leona, thank you so much. We're so grateful that you could be with us today. And don't ever diminish the work that you're doing just because you're behind a computer. It's a lot of hard work, especially in these days. So today, I just wanted to make a reminder that if you have any comments or greetings for Clare, please use the chat box. And there are links posted, including our website, and you can post on the Facebook page or the YouTube comment sections. So now we're going to hear from Leah Grady Savets. She's going to play music for us. Leah is Clare's daughter, and she lives in Ithaca. And when the weather is warmer, she works as a farmer in the area. All right, Leah, you're on.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I have a brief song that I'd like to share, and this song honors our connectedness that I am so grateful we are all reminded of in this gathering. And thank you so much, Leona. It's an honor to meet you here over this platform. I am grateful for the things that you have done. Yes, I'm grateful for the victories we've won. I could go on and on and on about your works, because I'm grateful, grateful, so grateful just to praise you, Lord. Flowing from my heart are the issues of my heart. It's gratefulness. I am grateful for the things that you have done. Yes, I'm grateful for the victories we've won. I could go on and on and on about your works, because I'm grateful, grateful, so grateful just to praise you, Lord. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Oh my God. Bring us all to tears. So right now, it's a little hard being the auntie and the sister in this facilitating thing. So now we're going to hear from our dear brother and friend and neighbor, Russell Rickford. He is a historian of the Black radical tradition and also an organizer with the Democratic Socialists of America. Russell, you're on.
Well, thanks so much. That was incredibly beautiful and moving. So I want to honor that. Tremendous gratitude for that. So it's a pleasure to be among so many beloved comrades and people of conscience in embracing our dear friend, Clare Grady. As you all know, Clare is something special. I've been struggling to describe this amazing quality that Clare possesses, the effect that she has on people, the way folks respond to her, the warmth and the enthusiasm that she exudes. It's a kind of charm, a kind of grassroots credibility and sincerity, but it's much more than that. It's integrity, profound faith, it's inspiration, it's love. And above all, it is trust. You know, folks trust Clare. We trust her kindness and her truthfulness, her moral consistency and conscience. And we trust her political values. and we trust and we cherish Clare's militancy. You know, I've been thinking a lot about this question of political militancy, especially in terms of the history of the modern Black freedom struggle. And in particular, I've been reflecting on women's militancy and Black women's militancy, and how so many of the most extraordinary militants in the Black radical tradition have been women. And how so many of those radical women have been ignored or erased by master narratives of history. In honor of the activism of Clare and Kings Bay Plowshare activists, I thought I'd briefly highlight a remarkable Black radical woman who was incredibly militant, who was a stalwart anti-war organizer, as well as a Pan-Africanist, a leftist, and an anti-imperialist. And I'm not at all drawing a direct political parallel between this person and Clare. I'm simply invoking this figure as a reminder that we stand in a rich tradition of radical struggle, and that phenomenal, complex women have so often been our most militant warriors. So let me say a few words about the African-American Harlem activist Mae Mallory. And I wonder if I can share my screen. How would I do that? Let's see. Oh, share screen. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. Play from current slide. It's only one slide, so I should be able to handle this. Sister Mae Mallory. Too few students of history know Mallory's name. She was a comrade of Malcolm X's. She was actually there in the audience that horrible day, February 1965, when Malcolm X was gunned down. And like Malcolm, she was an early and outspoken opponent of the US military adventure in Southeast Asia, which she condemned as a product of imperialist aggression. And she did so long before Martin King broke his silence on Vietnam. Mae Mallory was a member of the Old Left, having come out of the Communist Party. She was an intrepid working class organizer who struggled with poverty and meager wages her entire life. She was also a Black nationalist who insisted on Black pride and self-determination within and beyond leftist organizations. Indeed, Mallory was a staunch internationalist who identified deeply with Third World revolutionaries, including those who took up arms against the American war of aggression in Vietnam. Let me see if I can unshare my screen here. Okay, am I back?
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. So rejecting the term Negro, Mallory saw herself as an African in the West. She was an advocate of solidarity with anti-colonial struggles on the African continent. And she was among the African-American expats who lived in Tanzania, East Africa in the 1970s. For years, however, the base of her activism was Harlem. And it was there that she helped launch militant school desegregation struggles in the 1950s. In the early 60s, she traveled to the Deep South to help deliver guns and supplies to Robert F. Williams, the Monroe, North Carolina civil rights leader, who had vowed to resist with force of arms the murderous assaults of the KKK. As a result of her radical activism, Mallory was constantly harassed and hounded by intelligence and police forces. She was repeatedly jailed on trumped up charges. Herself a victim of state repression, She devoted much of her energy to advocacy on behalf of other political prisoners, including Black Power militants who faced intense persecution in the 1960s. Mallory was an iconoclast. She was a true rebel. She was unflinching and uncompromising. She was known for her sharp resistance to white paternalism and racism within the left, but she also battled sexism at the hands of Black male leaders who, to her dismay and disgust, dared to define Black radicalism as a masculine prerogative and attempted to relegate her to maternal or symbolic roles within the movement. In the late 50s and early 60s, as King emerged as the ultimate symbol of passive resistance in the US, Mallory remained a harsh critic of the philosophy of nonviolence. She always insisted that Black people had the right and the duty to arm themselves against racist terror. Mallory blended multiple political traditions, including feminism, Black nationalism, and socialism. She was unabashedly Black and working class and revolutionary. And in many ways, she embodied the personal and political intricacies of radical women who never had the luxury of separating their struggles against patriarchy, capitalism, militarism, and white supremacy. May Mallory was a marvel. And I invoke her, again, not to draw a simplistic analogy to the activists we celebrate this evening, but rather to suggest that the fighting spirit that inspires and inhabits us today has many complex and vibrant sources, and that this is one of the reasons that it survives. So, in honor of Sister May Mallory and all the unsung militants, we salute our dear comrade Clare, and we honor her verve and her splendid, indomitable militancy. Solidarity, free Palestine.
Amen. Thank you, Russell, dear brother. And wow. As we would say, up May Mallory. Just for folks to know, our friend Steve Deere posted in the chat a Wikipedia link to May Mallory. So there's info for people to look up to know who this powerful woman is and was. So our next speaker will be Clare Daly, who's an Irish member of the European Parliament for the Dublin constituency. And she's been a co-defendant in an Irish trial of civil resistance to US warplanes refueling in Shannon Airport, where the resistance continues. Clare, you're on. Thank you for being with us. From the other side of the pond, we can't hear you. I have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
We
I
can.
thought you'd do that for me. No, look, thank you so much, Marianne, and everybody for their contributions so far. I really have to say it's a total honor and in some ways an outrage to be with you all tonight. We're obviously honored to share this occasion, such an important celebration with such inspiring people. But at the same time, it is utterly outrageous that we have to gather here because Clare will be leaving during the week to go to prison for the crime of standing up for humanity. And she will join people like Julian Assange, who has almost spent 10 years incarcerated for exposing US war crimes when the criminals walk free. And we only have to listen to the horror outlined by Setsuko to realize the stance taken by Clare and her co-defendants was absolutely the morally correct and courageous stand to take. And I suppose we're here to say that our resolve is even stronger as a result of the measures taken by Clare and the others. It is a beacon to activists around the world. And I know that Clare is very proud of her Irish roots, and in the spirit of James Connolly, who was somebody that I would be inspired by. James Connolly was one of our early revolutionary leaders who very much fought around the idea of enshrining Irish neutrality. He was in many ways a lone voice with very few others in opposing World War I and the slaughter of ordinary people in the interests of capitalism. And he had a quote which was, and I'll just read it now: "If you strike at, imprison, or kill us, out of our prisons or graves, we will still evoke a spirit that will thwart you, and perhaps raise a force that will destroy you. We defy you, do your worst." And that's kind of the way I see Clare's stance here, because she's raising a force, kind of like the rest of us, a non-violent force against empire, against the waste of resources for war when there's so much want in the world. And I was delighted to be able to send Clare a copy of her book, and I have a little surprise for her that joining me is my co-defendant is here with me to also send greetings, but he's not in the picture because he can't get into the picture. But our book was Coalition of the Unwilling, which was, you know, our stance really of saying that we around the world who are going to stand up against empire, against war, and we're very glad to be part of, I suppose, the Coalition of the Unwilling, along with the rest of them. So my co-defendant, Mick Wallace, if he can get into the camera, if he can, wants to say a few words as well.
Well, it's not that I've been pushing to get a few words, but just in support of Clare. And I think people should realize that, like, for example, there's 27 member states in the European Union, and each of them has been involved in promoting the militarization of Europe. But it's true to say that in every one of those 27 member states, it's actually not what the people want in any of those countries. The people are on a different wavelength. And the work of activists like yourselves, you have no idea. Sometimes you think that, oh God, it's such a struggle with mainstream media completely against us. You know, I mean, you have the likes of Obama, who got his, as our friends pointed out, got a Peace Prize in 2009 for going to, because he was supposed to do the right thing around nuclear, which he didn't, and he ended up dropping more bombs than any previous American president. And now he's lauded as a hero in America. But in actual fact, the people are not stupid. The people realize what's going on, and they realize the damage and the destruction that's caused in the interest of financial gain right across the world by major powers, and probably none worse, unfortunately, than the US. But my point is that the majority of people right around the world are actually would be backing everything that you do, and you mightn't feel it all the time, but there's far more support for it. And I love to quote Noam Chomsky when he said, without any doubt, he said, it's a difficult struggle, he says, but he says, every single human being on the planet, he says, can make the world a better place each day. And he says, sometimes it only takes a smile. And listen, every effort that we make, everything we do to highlight the injustices, it's a tough gig, but you know what? I think don't underestimate the impact that you're making on people right across the world. Things are changing, and I'm an optimist at heart, and I do believe that these people that are causing so much destruction just in the name of profit are actually reaching the bottom of the barrel, and things will have to change. And I'm confident that things will change. And listen, all the best, every one of you. Well done.
Yeah. Stay strong. We'll be with you in spirit, Clare. All the very best. You're our inspiration, and thank you so much for allowing us to be part of this.
So Clare, and say your colleague's name there.
Mick Wallace.
Mick Wallace.
Mick Wallace.
Mick
infamous, much more infamous than me.
Well, that's wonderful. Oh my God, what a send-off. And it's wonderful to hear your brogue. So only because Agnes Williams our next speaker has to leave at 5. I'm going to transition real quickly. Forgive me. So Agnes, and thank you so much from the voices across the pond. Agnes Williams is a Cattaraugus Creek Seneca grandmother, and she educates the public about uranium mining and waste disposal on Indian territories. Agnes met Clare walking with Junsan across New York State, and she's a community organizer, activist with the Indigenous Women's Initiative in Buffalo, New York, and the local affiliate with the Indigenous Women's Network in Austin, Texas. Currently, she works on 3 campaigns. 1, dismantling the doctrine of discovery. 2, water is life. And the 3rd is nuclear-free future. So with that, Agnes, we turn it over to you. I'm sorry, I didn't know you had to leave at 5. Greetings and welcome.
Well, I'd like to extend a greetings and Thanksgiving to all of my distinguished colleagues here, and especially to my friend and dear mentor, Clare Grady. It was the 90s when I first met Clare, and we were at the Junsan's temple when she first built the stupa there. And there was an immediate soul bonding, I think, when we were in the festivities after the ceremony for the stupa. And one of our elders from the Onondaga Nation had a song sung that actually brought a water spout. The wind came, there was the lake, all the kids, our kids were young at the time, were playing by the water, and this wind came flying in and it brought up this water spout that was about 70 feet high. And at that point, we knew, that there was this soul sister kind of thing that happened for us. And I followed her career ever since. And I just want to wish her the best greetings and also the prayers from my nation, from my family, my nation, and the Indigenous people. As Indigenous people are at the beginning, at the end of the nuclear chain. And here in Western New York, we are downstream on the Cattaraugus Creek from the West Valley nuclear waste plant. And through Junsan, it's really Junsan's campaign. I was sent to Japan in 1983 by Dennis Banks and the American Indian Movement with Janet McLeod from Washington State. And we participated in the ANH-BOM conferences there. And there were 7 Indigenous delegates at these conferences in Tokyo, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki. And it was our role, and we were invited specifically to introduce the issue of nuclear energy, because the reality of that chain is that it's the same chain and it's the same process that leads to weapons, that leads to energy. And the weapons are only on the end of that chain. So there's been a lot of myths, and a lot of people try to say, oh, those are 2 different things, the energy, and they're not. And this was the role that we had to go to 1983 and to try to bring that awareness and that participation in Japan, because there was such a focus on the weapons and this rising nuclear energy monster, has been coming. So in the early 64, we experienced the building of this nuclear waste plant on the Tuscarora Reservation, which is in Niagara Falls. They actually buried nuclear waste from the Manhattan Project in the roadway on True Road there. And that roadway bubbled up, and the hazmat team had to come in and remove it while Tuscarora people lived on that same road and experienced that exposure. So in our communities, we've continued to experience in the last 50 plus years this radiation poisoning that nobody likes to talk about because it's always focused on events and it's not talking about this continuum that was started in the mid 20th century. So that's, that's the nuclear free campaign that we have here. And I did put a link on there for the Nuclear Information Resource Service in Washington, D.C. We have a campaign right now to try to, they're taking down a building. We're at risk for even more exposure. And we're trying to get a mask put on that demolition, as well as an inventory done so people can go there. The other campaign that we have is dismantling the doctrine of discovery. I don't know how many people have heard that phrase. Doctrine of discovery is actually a US law that, morphed out of the 15th century papal bulls by the Vatican, by the church to invade and kill anybody who didn't convert to Catholicism. In Africa, there's papal bulls for Africa, and there's papal bulls for North America. And once Columbus landed, and it was that conquering that happened, and it started this long trajectory that we've been on in terms of domination. So there's a link that I've put up for this film, a great film that has been produced about decoding the domination and really identifying, some of these, the roots of the white supremacy and the domination that has existed for red, brown, and Black people in the Americas. So that's on there. The third campaign that we have it is the water is life. And that is very urgent for us now. The temperature in Minnesota is 12 to 17 below zero. And there's 6 different camps that are trying to stop the Line 3. All these pipelines, that are leading to the Alberta tar sands in Canada. The Alberta tar sands produces 1/4 of the carbon into the atmosphere daily. And that, because that oil is so dirty, that dirty oil, and the pipelines they're trying to put in are going to bring that oil from Canada and run it to the south and then export it. And again, nobody in the path of the pipelines is going to benefit from any of that. The development of the first and the second world, mostly European descent peoples, has been dependent upon the underdevelopment of the third world, people of color, the wage workers, and no development in the fourth world. So what's happening on Line 3, one of our projects of the Indigenous Women's Network in Austin, Texas, was started by Winona LaDuke, who has the Honor the Earth. The website is on there, but you can go to the Stop Line 3 and read all about how this genocide of contamination of indigenous food sources, because that whole area where they're putting a new corridor in, and the corporation culprits that put the first corridor in of pipelines just left them there to rot and to pollute the lands. So there's this same thing happening in the nuclear industry that's happening in the oil industry. We have corporation culprits who do not take any responsibility for the destruction of the earth and the destruction of livelihoods, food sources, and specifically for us, indigenous peoples. Since the time of Columbus, the United States has had this doctrine of discovery policy, and they made it into law. And nowadays, for the nuclear issues, they say it's they call it the national sacrifice area, where regional governors get together and decide where they're going to put nuclear waste. And it's always on the least populated areas, which of course ends up being indigenous people. And that's why we're under this policy, national sacrifice policy, that eventually we will be destroyed and we will be eliminated. So our population, as Senecas, And nationally, we've been going extinct till 1900. And that's why West Valley is so important to us, because there's no place else that we can go as Senecas. This is it. We can't go back to Europe. We can't go to Africa. We can't go. Our genetic pool here, this is the end of the Senecas. If this pollution and this radiation poisoning continues on. So we're fighting real hard here to stop that, as well as to bring the awareness about the problems with the nuclear industry, a failed industry. At West Valley, the corporate culprit was the Westinghouse. And again, it's the Westinghouse who's, the Plowshares went and to the Trident missile. They went to that missile, and now they're promoting, oh, look at what we've done with these submarines, these nuclear submarines. And it's Westinghouse that's promoting offshore nuclear sites, so that they'll start producing that as a remedy for the climate change. So we've got a big fight in front of us. We have to all continue to band together. I just want to say thank you for allowing me this time. And thank you to Clare for all of her sacrifices. And I just would like all of us to every day in the morning to think of her, put a big bubble of protection around her in our prayers, and just keep her in our hearts as she goes forward with her life. So thank you very much.
Agnes, you are a dear. Thank you, sister. And we're grateful to be in this Haudenosaunee Confederacy lands shared with you. Thank you for all of what you shared. That's very important. Okay, right now we're going to transition to a bit of music from Ireland again. John, I think this is an Irish family tradition thing here going on. John Flynn and Owen O'Canavan are musicians from Dublin, Ireland, who play a lot with other musicians and have been part of the band called Skipper's Alley. All right, John and Owen, you're on.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear us? Good stuff. Yeah. Hi, Claire. So we're gonna just sing just a quick song. This is Owen. Sorry, we already said that. Anyway, we're just gonna sing a song. Come, me little son, I will tell you what to do. Undress yourself and get into bed, and a tale I'll tell to you. It's all about your daddy. He's a man you seldom see, but he's had to run away from home, away from your auntie. But remember, lies, tell your dad, now he's working hard way. In the cold and the heat, all the hours of the week, on England's motored way. Now if you on toward yourself and get a feeling back. It isn't any use to go running for your dad. For the only time since you were born that he's had to spend with you. He's been out of a job and he hadn't a job. He was signing on the for the member of he's tell your dad now he's working far away in the cold and the heat all the hours of the week on England's motorway. And shorty like your daddy home, and sure it would be fine to have him working near our home, to see him all the time. Oh, beggars can be choosers, and we have to tear that load. For we need the money your daddy and to working on the road. But remember, lad, he's still your dad. Now he's working far away in the cold and the heat of yours off. And England's motorway. Remember, lad, he's still your dad, and he'll soon be home to stay. But how we go to it, when he's built the motorway.
All right. Thank you, guys. This is great. John and Owen.
I'm going to interrupt just for 1 second. This is Ellen talking, and Claire just said that she'd love to chat with people afterwards, but we'll continue on with the program. So if anybody is able to stay on and chat, she'd love to say hello to you all. But right now, we'll keep going with the program.
Okay, and thank you, Ellen. So right now we're going to hear some letters from jail from Patrick O'Neill. Mary Ryder, his wife, will read his letter, and Martha Hennessy will read well, Martha Hennessy's letter will be read by Leah, and then I'll introduce the next person after those two. So Mary, you're on.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, it sounds great.
Okay. Okay, good. So Patrick has been in prison 550 miles from home for the last 3 weeks and a couple of days. And he sends his greetings to all of you and especially to Claire and what he has written. He says, "The road has been long for those of us on the journey of the Kings Bay Plowshares, and now we have reached another milestone, so to speak. Claire, I wish you safe landing without any shock. I know you will be a light in the darkness to the women you meet on this stop. In truth, our burden is so very light when compared to what those around us are experiencing in these dens of oppression and despair. Here at Elkton, I share conversations daily with men who have been here for 10 years or those who have 10 years more, all for offenses that deserve mercy." Sorry, sorry, just a minute, Mary Evelyn.
No, not just in a minute. Right
Mary
now.
Evelyn, I am on a meeting right now.
I'm not kidding. I want you to ask the manager about it and go to one person.
Mary Evelyn, I'm reading something on a meeting. Go out of my room now.
Time. One is ready, and I don't like it.
Okay,
in the noise.
I'm sorry, everyone. All right, so let me try that again.
Mom,
Here,
please.
listen.
Oh my God.
Sorry, 15-year-old here. Back to Patrick. Here at Elkton, I share conversations daily with men who have been here for 10 years or those who have 10 years more, all for, quote, offenses that deserve mercy. So I try to see my time here as a work of mercy, as I know you will see yours, Claire. Know that I love you and look forward to the day the 7 of us will have a reunion and share stories. Like all of us, my heart aches for our brother Steve Kelly, who on December 29th, 2020, served his 1,000th day in jail. And the madness goes on as Steve, who turned 72 on January 15th, as he is secretly moved from jail to jail with no rhyme or reason. My prayers are with all of you on this love Zoom. Peace and blessings, Patrick O'Neill. And my apologies for our daughter's interruption.
No apologies necessary, Mary. Thank you so much. All right, Leah, you're up.
Here is a letter from Martha Hennessy. Claire, you taught me how to share with the women in prison. I am always thinking about how you would respond to certain situations here at Danbury Federal Prison Camp. I try to remember how you would see it. The issues of race relations, how this prison is built on indigenous land, how the bomb tops off our system of oppression and exploitation. Also, hard-boiled eggs, salted peanuts, and pickles from commissary make me think of you as my bunkie. Both you and Liz, I miss you, my friends and co-conspirators. I am so grateful you are in the bosom of your family, dear Liz. And Claire, you are prepared for Alderson, and I am praying for your health and strength. I hear the food is better there than here. I love you. God is with you. See you at our getting out party. Love, Martha.
Wow, that was sweet, Leah. Thank you. I realized I had a different letter that I wanted to let all of our viewers know Martha has sent, and the letters from all of these folks are posted on our website, the Kings Bay Plowshares 7.org website. So Leah, thank you. And now we have our friend Jack Cohen-Japa of the Nuclear Resistor, and a great supporter of, a direct supporter of Father Steve Kelly, the one who was spoken about in transit. And he'll read words from Steve and give a brief update on Carmen. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, Marianne. So we're coming to you today from the lands of the people of the desert, the Tohono O'odham in Tucson, Arizona. And I'm going to read a note of update from Carmen first, and then I'll finish with Steve's message for Claire and us all. Carmen's been at the satellite camp at FCI Otisville in upstate New York for almost 2 months, and he's doing reasonably well and is in decent spirits. They've had a lot of snow lately, which has slowed down the mail somewhat. That said, Carmen is grateful for the many letters he is receiving and responds to them as quickly as he can. He's also reading a lot. He's happy to be receiving the New York Times Monday through Saturday, and he shares it with the other prisoners in the camp. He asks that you continue to hold him in your prayers. And from Father Steve Kelly, he dictated this to Felice. It's bittersweet to have this occasion to impart our blessing for our sister, our co-defendant Claire. She steps into the labyrinth of the third phase or witness, that is incarceration as a consequence of Kings Bay Plowshares. She joins Carmen, Martha, and Patrick in spirit as a prisoner of conscience, a category not listed by her soon-to-be keepers in the Bureau of Prisons. As to my own situation, I relay word to you from a zombie version of the Bureau of Prisons going by the name of Core Civic, formerly known as Corrections Corporation of America. These institutions were singled out in one of Biden's first directives as president, when on January 26, he declared the administration was not going to rely on private detention facilities. Hopefully, the profit motive will be removed from the prison industrial complex. I'm not holding my breath. This place in the middle of the contiguous 48 states is classified as a holdover detention center, but I digress. Claire has plenty of experience in the belly of the beast, buried out of sight, out of mind by the empire like a slave galley ship oaring toward the prison island of Patmos. The attempt is to bury her personhood standing up. It dawns on me that this third witness, the previous two were A, the witness at Kings Bay, and B, the trial before a jury with Judge Wood presiding. This third witness consists in humanizing oneself in the face of institutional dehumanization and possible degradation. And we know that Claire, mensch that she is, valiantly preserved the humanity of those around her. She is a maven of inclusion and listening for heart and soul of those she interacts with. But we know that while this comes naturally to Claire, it is a full-time effort and thus requires stores and resources of energy from her and support from us. May Claire and I and our co-defendants be found worthy to undergo this barrage of inconveniences for nuclear abolition. God bless everyone.
Thank you, Jack. That's wonderful. I just want to make note here that Mark Colville, tell us what the date is of your, of what the court is expecting of you, and just for people to know that you're in a sort of limbo as you've not been. What's the date?
Yeah. Well, again, I'm insisting on being sentenced in person, and I am refusing to leave Connecticut for Georgia until the state of Georgia gets its act together, and the governor of Connecticut says that they have gotten their act together. So anyway, I'm now scheduled. I've gotten basically like a 2-month continuance again. April 9th is the next day. So, and thank you to Matt D'Alicio, our dear friend, and thankfully a lawyer, who's really handling this for me. And so, a few weeks beforehand, we will assess the situation, and if there's nothing changed, then we will request another continuance. Basically the judge doesn't have a leg to stand on in terms of justifying not giving one. So until the government does something to make the people of this country safe. So that's where we're at.
Thank you, brother. Thanks, Mark. All right, now we'll hear from Liz McAllister, who's she's also co-defendant with the, hi Liz, how are you? Of the Kings Bay Plowshares. And Liz has served 18 months in the county jail in Georgia pre-trial. And she's now living in New London, Connecticut with her daughters and their families. So Liz, you're on.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Well, I think it's clear to so many of us that we are in a period of struggle with a movement that is spiritually deep and broadly connected, and a movement that knows that it's got to continue to go deeper and broader. And yet we need to keep connecting across barriers of faith, barriers of ideology. The good news, however, is that we have not imploded in despair. After all of these years and all of these efforts. And yet we need to keep on connecting across barriers of faith and ideology. Many of us understand that a deeper resistance is summoned of us. And we are trying, praying, working to be strategic, to be faithful, to be human. And I think we all know that we have to keep at it. Inspire, conspire the next steps. Be in conversation, be in community, be in the streets. Disrupt business as usual. Prefer poetry to ideology. Pray for the victims before the nations. The powers of death and destruction appear to be in the upper categories, but the mayhem with which the powers of this world would bamboozle us, well, we address those when we light the candle. And the candle, that means intransigent resistance. And we bamboozle them when we continue to pray and try to live the spirit of that prayer. And Clare embodies all of this, and she does it so beautifully. We love you, Clare. We love what you're doing, and our prayers are going to be with you.
Thank you, dear Liz. Sweet Liz. Thank you. By the way, folks, for those of you that don't know this, Liz and Clare were housed together at Alderson way long ago. Clare, what year was that, or Liz?
1984 and 1985. Liz had a 3-year sentence. I had a 2-year sentence.
Yeah. So people can see the information about the previous Plowshares actions, the 100. We've got a long history. So just a reminder to, if you have any comments or greetings for Clare, please use the chat box. And also, many people have posted links, including to the nuclear resistor and to the work of Leona Morgan and Agnes Williams and many others are all in the chat box and also in the YouTube and Facebook page comment section. So our next, just wanted to also make note, we're near the end. We've only got 3 more and my closing remarks and we're done. So hang in there a little bit longer and we'll close up soon. Our next dear friend, dear cousin, Emma O'Grady,
Oh, they
He's
switched.
an Irish writer and actor from County Galway, and is Claire's cousin, our cousin. Claire, Emma, you're on.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. I'm sitting here in Carlastran in County Galway, which is just a couple of miles away from where mine and your and Claire's ancestors came from. I was asked to write a blessing for Claire, and I thought that Zoom might go on fire, such is the state of my lapsed Catholicism. So this is my attempt at a blessing for Claire. There's a rumble in the heart. You don't even have to close your eyes and quieten the world to hear it. It's as loud as can be. This rumble, which right now you are at the center of, can be heard by everyone that has gone before us and will be heard by all of those after us. The rumble is what connects us across continents through generations. Everything that we are is a manifestation of the dreams of the people gone before us. The rumble's name is truth. That's why we can hear it loud and clear. When our people separated and yours emigrated and mine stayed here in Galway, little could they have imagined this moment in their wildest dreams, Zoom and all. Honor Burke Grady and Patrick Grady. They say you die twice, once when you breathe your last breath and a second time later on when someone says your name for the last time. Honor Burke Grady and Patrick Grady. I'm saying their names because no one has said their names for a long time. The names of the people we came from, the people we share. Irish DNA on both sides of you. Anti-colonialism in your blood. They and the whole Glanafotia lot and all the other branches of the tree and all the trees before and after and yet to come can hear the rumble. It's an undeniable sound. I believe they imagined the kind of people we might be. I hope we haven't disappointed them. I know they are proud of you. Tonight, as I sit here in the place you were dreamt of, an east wind is blowing outside. Unusually east. Usually it blows from the west to bring you lot home to us for a visit or a fla. But this time it's going the other way. About time there was some reciprocity and gratitude, a little kindness across to a place that needs it. To you, to your siblings, your daughters. An east wind to carry all our blessings and love across the Atlantic. Air to fill the lungs in this time of global breathlessness. Gusts to bring clarity of thought. In the Celtic tradition, it's now Imbolc, spring. Imbolg meaning in the belly, hope of brighter, warmer days. There is light shining in the darkened corners. Seeds are deep in the ground. They are experts in patience. Imbolg is symbolized by St. Bridget. May you be safe, may you be protected, may the fires of Bridget protect you. I am speaking gently, but that is not to pretend that this is not difficult and unfair and dangerous and messy and painful. You did a symbolic act, but you are not a symbol or a saint. You're a human woman, which makes your faith, your trust, your belief in truth and justice, your selfless fight all the more remarkable. I'll finish now by reading you a blessing from John O'Donoghue's book, Anam Cara, which means soul friend. Bannacht. On the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. When your eyes freeze behind the grey window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colours, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. When the canvas frays in the currach of thought and a stain of ocean blackens beneath you, may there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your life. Thank you.
Oh my God, Emma, what a cousin we have. That was wonderful. What a gift. So Claire, I'm just looking through this list of people that are left, and I think it's your turn.
Thanks, Marianne, and thanks, Emma. This is our first time really meeting each other. And I didn't plan to say this, but it was only a powerful reminder of how we are connected when we met John Flynn and the other guys at the pub. And we were just shooting the shit. and John Flynn turns like a cat. And I said, wow, you're such a good cat. You're such a good actor. He says, I am an actor. I said, no. He says, yes, I am. And he pulls out this theater program. And I say, that's my cousin. And Ellen had just given me your program from coming back from Ireland. And sure enough, we make friends with your dear friends in a pub here in the Catskills, the Irish Catskills, as they call them. So yeah, I prepared my remarks, but I have to say, I told Ellen about a month ago, I don't want to send off. I don't want to say anything more. I don't want any more work for everybody to do. And Ellen said, well, it's not about you, Claire. This is about giving voice to the people who need to say something. And I was like, of course, thanks for taking that so seriously. So thank you, each of the women that shared here today. Leona, who had to go, maybe you're still there, Leona and Agnes and Claire and Emma, and then Russell. God bless you, Russell. You're tireless and you're just genuine as can be. We always benefit from your words. And Bill, we're about to hear from you as well. Thank you. And hello, Denise, and all the musicians that joined us here. Ellen is, she knows that resistance without a party and without joy is just not gonna go far. So we are in that lineage of joy, music, dance, poetry. May joy continue. And I want to give a shout out to the Kings Bay Plowshares support community that has done an amazing job of spreading the word and continuing to make connections and build community. And a special shout out to Teresa and Robert Randall and Sarah Cool and all those in Georgia who are doing the work to go beyond Trident. And that they're making the connections with the triplets. And right where Teresa is where Ahmaud Arbery was killed a year ago this February on the 23rd, which is when, anyway, another anniversary that we have here for Sean Greenwood on the 23rd of February, 10 years, exactly to the day, 10 years before. So thank you, Teresa, and thanks for being on this call here. I want to acknowledge the ancestors and thank you so much, Emma, for not just speaking about them, but really, really, truly being in touch with our ancestors, and that they don't, it's not just where we came from, but they, I truly believe, accompany us on our journey. And I have felt that powerfully strong. If anyone who knows me knows I started out a little shy, and I definitely am not a writer and a speaker, but I have been challenged to ask for the ancestors and the cloud of witnesses and the spirit to help me. So everything that comes out of my mouth is only because I have that help, or even not just my mouth, but my actions. going to Kings Bay was not the act of James Bond or any hero at all. It was the simple act of a very simple-minded person in community, and in a very beloved community. So I want to acknowledge the cloud of witnesses, and I want to acknowledge that they chose to resist empire with the gospel of nonviolence. And I'm not using that word to condemn at all anybody's struggle, however militant they have to do to resist empire. I'm just speaking it as an I statement. My religion did not start out as an imperial religion, but 313 AD, with Emperor Constantine's conversion, Christianity became the religion of empire. We Christians have much to atone for, as the church has blessed the colonial projects of empire for hundreds of years. Colonialism requires the triplets of racism, militarism, extreme materialism, and thank you, Russell, patriarchy. It requires those. And I seek to stand in the remnant that follows the nonviolent Jesus, who is not a white man, who is not a blue-eyed, blonde-haired man, but a brown man living in occupied Palestine. I seek to follow that Jesus, repenting and atoning for the sins of empire, the sin of colonialism, the sins of white supremacy, militarism, and the economies of greed. I am grateful also for that spirit that I call upon regularly. And that spirit moves through all people and all creation, not owned by one or any religion. A spirit that calls us to right relationship with the Creator, with creation, spirit that calls us to be our true selves. So I want to echo and acknowledge the words that Steve already said, that this prison time is just another stage of the action. Going to Kings Bay is going, for me, like going to the head of the beast. And yes, we will find ourselves in the belly of the beast. And it is in those places in the belly of the beast that I have encountered some of my best teachers. People in prison and formerly in prison are some of the most amazing, powerful teachers of resilience, of resistance, of joy in the face of the most utter brutality. I want to shout out to the prisoners in St. Louis who took it upon themselves to break out of their cells, help each other break out of their cells, and break the windows and display the banners with their requests and their demands, and set a fire to the sheets, throw some furniture out, but not harming each other or anyone else after the first little fight that happened. But I want to say the narrative that is just predictable, that says they are violent, they are murderers, they are police, that is not true. So I hope it's in the chat that you can see the link of the interviews of what happened there, and also the reflection from Heather Ann Thompson, who studied so much about Attica. And anyway, accompanying all this killing and oppression is always the lie. So almost just like flip it upside down each time. Don't be fooled again and again about who is violent and who is a criminal. Almost without fail, I just flip it upside down. If anyone knows me, I do not let people utter the word criminal without actually stopping and having a good conversation about what the real crime is and who the real criminals are. So prisons is a site for my next stop. And I had a lot of thoughts, but I got interrupted a lot. You'll be thankful for that, because I didn't completely write them all out. And but I have a few little notes. I'm glad that it went up on the board that the US plans to spend $100,000 a minute for the next 10 years on its nuclear weapons alone. Right? Just contemplate that as we contemplate these triplets and deconstructing colonialism and the whole colonial project. US maintains 800 military bases around the world. And the most recent ones are in Africa, promoting the US project of AFRICOM. That the colonial project continues. It's not a thing of the past. May we not wait another 500 years or 700 years before we make amends for something, but may we stop it now and see how it's using our complacency to go full steam ahead. And one little thing that came across my path years ago that just popped up in early morning was, you know, it cost $1 million, according to one account, to keep one US soldier in Afghanistan for 1 year. Contrast that with it costs between $14,000 and $70,000 to keep a prisoner in prison, and it costs between $10,000 and $60,000 to keep a person in college for 1 year. I just want to put that out there. It's a very revealing thing. If we didn't already know, we were possessed by this killing imperial, this spirit already, that we have normalized it so much that this constant unrepentant killing hardly raises our eyebrows anymore. Hardly raises our eyebrows. So yeah, who lives and who dies in this project, and whose lives matter? So I give thanks for the movement for liberation that comes from Black lives, from Indigenous struggle, from all the people around the world on their own behalf who are saying no to this death-dealing domination, and yes to life and joy. And thanks, Una and James. They're about to play some music, and Bill is going to do a blessing. And I love you all. And I don't know how to use the chat here. I love to chat, but I don't know how to do that so well. So I'll stay afterwards to share some love.
Thank you, Claire. Oh my God, that was wonderful. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in the chat. I hope that one of us, whoever the tech person is, can scroll and copy and paste all that, and that we preserve that along with this recorded event tonight. So we'll move right into Una Grady, who is our niece, my brother's daughter, and James Gascon, who are part of a band called Drank the Gold, and they live in Saratoga Springs, New York. So you're on. Thanks, Una. And
hello. Hello, you guys.
Hi.
Thanks for inviting us, and everyone. We love you so much. Claire, sending our love, and yeah, we're gonna play a tune that James wrote. Do you wanna...
Yeah, we wrote this for the occasion. It's called "March Toward Peace."
wonderful. Thank you,
Awesome.
James. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, folks, it's 8 minutes to 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And we now present our dear brother and friend, Bill Wylie-Kellermann, a theologian from Detroit, Michigan. Bill is an author and a nonviolent community activist and civil resistor, most recently to water shutoffs in Detroit. Bill, you're on.
Thank you, Marianne.
You're welcome. Welcome, welcome.
Love and greetings to all. Denise and I join you from land the Anishinaabe call Wawiatanong, where the water goes around, which the Europeans renamed the Strait des Trois. By way of introit, I want to do two things. One, to mention that for the past 3 months, I've been thinking and writing about Daniel Berrigan. And this week I turned into the publisher a manuscript. And if I may, I'd like to share my dedication of that. For Clare Grady, indeed the greater Grady clan, with Elizabeth McAllister and all of the Kings Bay Plowshares, for enacting like Daniel and Philip, their own hammer-rung witness of love. The second thing I would like to do is to take a moment to widen the circle of those of us, of those who pray with us today, members of this community who are absent by distance or circumstance or imprisonment, and especially those who have crossed over, ancestors, elders, and saints, all our relations. Some of those have been named by Leona and Russell and Emma. And I think readily of John and Teresa Grady, Peter DeMott. And I would invite you to name aloud, and if you like, also in the chat, those who are part of this circle. And let us take a moment, speak their names. Diné Wylie, I would say. Stringfellow.
I'd like to remember and bring in the spirit of Ardith Platy, presente. Elmer Moss, people are writing names in the chat. Sister Ann Montgomery, Tom Lewis, Jerry Zawada, Jim Missy, Father Bill Bix, many of the, St. Oscar Romero, Patrice Lumumba, Judy Beaumont. Well, I guess this is partly because other people's voices can't chime in on the webinar. The Gumps, Joe and Jean Gump, Jackie Hudson, Lynn Romano. For those of you who are on the panel, please do feel welcome to chime in. Russell, do you want to add some names? Or
Kristen Schmidt from the Pershing Plowshares.
Great. Great. Russell, I didn't mean to.
Heidi Hines.
Russell, go ahead. Oh, you need to be unmuted.
No, it's okay. I put some names in the
in the chat.
In the chat. Yeah. Sister Fannie Lou Hamer, Sister Ella Baker.
Amen.
And many, many, many others.
Claudia Jones.
Claudia Jones, great internationalist.
Yes, yes.
Heidi Hines.
Heidi Hines, yeah.
Lynn Romano.
Gino Bush. Diane Sams.
Bill Quigley says Muhammad Ali, a great resistor.
Ooh,
Paul
but
Cabot and Larry Cloud Morgan.
it turns out we're related to Muhammad Ali. There's one of his family members is a Grady.
Berta Cáceres. Lynn Stewart.
Fred Hampton. Jack Egan.
Larry Rosebaugh.
Dorothy Day.
Gordon Judd.
Leon and Marianne Savitz.
Kirby Edmonds.
Jerry Berrigan.
Christy Nesbitt says Mary Grace McCoy, her partner.
Rafael Cancel Miranda and Lolita Lebron and Father Alvaro de Boer, all of Puerto Rico.
Gay Garrison.
Yes.
There's surely no end to this listing of our hearts, and we lift them up and summon them to join us in this moment of prayer. Let's pray. Spirit of life, breath holy and deep, who convenes the community beloved and bends the moral arc of this universe toward justice, be with us now. We are beset with giant triplets, a mock and unholy trinity, the ruling principalities of our time. We name them raging white supremacy, predatory capitalism, homicidal weaponry. All assault your people and earth. Come to our assistance, make haste to help us. We believe, and so we pray, that these powers cannot separate us from the love of God, that they may be engaged in nonviolent struggle, defeated with weapons of the spirit. They can be exposed, made spectacle, resisted unto death, be dethroned and dismantled. They are doomed to pass away, and we renounce them with our lives. We give thanks for all of those whom we join in this work of action and spirit, especially those who have testified among us in this hour. Bring their labors and their hopes to fruition. For the Kings Bay Plowshares, may they know and see that day. And for Clare Grady, let your hand be always upon her. Guard her health, body and soul. Bless her roots in family and land. Hold fast her daughters, Leah and Rosie, in this minute of separation. Enable her to notice and build community in the places where it is forbidden, denied, suppressed. May she find ways to touch earth, to walk it, and savor blooms in the prison yard. Grant her, even in these days, a Catholic worker sabbatical, the hidden graces of reading, correspondence, stillness, and solitude. Thank you for her vision and discernment and for her willingness. May her heart remain unshaken. Bless her for blessing us. Through her and with her, we pray for all prisoners, especially in these fearsome COVID days. Bring them and all of us into your kingdom of beloved community. This in the name of Jesus, a name so misused and yet so strong. And in the name of that community to which he calls us. Amen.
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 Thank you, Bill. Wow. Oh my gosh. This feels really hard. I just realized that I should have put these other words first and let you go last to tie this, as you just tied this so beautifully together. So it's my job to end this with the last final word. So bear with me for a sec. So during the massive global movement to disarm nuclear weapons back in the 80s, Reagan and Gorbachev reduced their stockpile from 90,000 nuclear warheads down to 15,000, according to Nobel Prize winner Dr. Ira Helfand, who came to Ithaca and shared this news. People back then in the 80s knew the threat because of these enumerated things. One was living through atomic bomb school drills, hiding under desks called duck and cover. They knew it from watching the film The Day After, which showed what nuclear winter looks like. They knew it because of living through the meltdown of 3 Mile Island. They knew it from the indigenous-led fight to end nuclear dumping and testing on sacred lands. They knew it from the Freeze and the Sane campaigns. And they knew it also from the early Plowshares disarmament direct actions and from the millions marching in the streets. So when Dr. Helfand came to Ithaca just a year ago before COVID and was sharing this news, and people were saying, well, this is not the 1980s. He said, no, this is 1979. This is a moment of incubation of the new movement. So today, the doomsday clock, we just learned this last week from the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, the doomsday clock is set still to 100 seconds to midnight, despite the fact that the Biden administration is in place. And I'd like somebody to please post in the link to the statement from the bulletin, if you can, in the chat. So it's our work now, from city by city, town by town, to disarm directly and to divest from pension funds that buy stock in nuclear weapons, as New York City did last January 28th. The Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons is now in force, as Setsuko and all the others that had worked on outlawing nuclear weapons. So we must rid the world of the last 14,000. The world's movements for justice are merging in the streets. And as we used to say in the United Farm Workers, si se puede, it can be done. So thanks to all of you who've stayed with us through this whole long event, and let the work of disarmament continue, and may we embody that. Thank you all for being with us. And Claire, we bless you.